So the question is, what happened to the Adamic covenant? Sounds so great, right? We're a king, we're a priest, we're a prophet, we're a son and daughter of God. We're in this wonderful spousal relationship. We're in perfect peace in the vertical relationship with God, perfect peace with nature. We got this garden, we got a tree of life, we got a river of life, providing all the things that we need for immortality. How could anything go wrong? But it does. There's a fall into sin that begins with distrusting God as Father. And that, in a sense, is the heart of all sin, to believe the lie of Satan, that God does not have our best interests at heart and is really not a loving Father to us. So what did Adam and Eve do? Well, they, first of all, consumed fruit that God said not to. There was the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, which God said, don't eat of this tree. Now you might say, why does God even put a tree in the middle of the garden that they're not supposed to eat from? Well, it's so that their love can be proved, because love needs to be free. And for love to be free, there needs to be an option not to love. And so God makes this one option in this beautiful and perfect world, one option that they can take, not to love him, not to trust him. And don't you know, they do it. So they consume the fruit in disobedience to God their Father, listening to the serpent who is speaking with the voice of the evil one, the voice of Satan, persuading them to distrust the love that God has for them. They consume that fruit. Satan promises them that if they consume the fruit, they'll have the knowledge of good and evil. That's a literary device that we call a merism, where you cite the extremes to reference the whole spectrum in between. So saying knowing good and evil would be representative of knowing everything from good to evil, from the best to the worst, that kind of concept from A to Z. So it's almost like divine omniscience. You're going to be like God, knowing good and evil, knowing all things. And you know what they find out? They're naked. That's the only thing the text says they actually find out with this divine knowledge that they're supposed to gain from eating the fruit. Oh, we're naked. Well, okay, so we'll put that down. That's really a reference to their vulnerability. Their nakedness is exposed. This is what happens to all of us as human beings when we go on an ego trip and think that we're going to challenge God through our knowledge. We end up just discovering our own vulnerability. So they consume fruit, they discover their nakedness, they become ashamed of themselves, experience shame. They try to cover themselves with fig leaves. Not a super good idea. Has never really taken off as a form of clothing. Kind of showing the inadequacy of human beings trying to deal with their own nakedness, their own vulnerability, so to speak. So consume fruit, nakedness, shame, and then they end up experiencing curse. God does not curse them directly, but he curses the environment because of their sin, and they're going to experience the results of that curse through the soil being resistant to them, through the pains of childbirth, etc. So, sad story. Things then go from bad to worse. Shortly thereafter, we get the first murder with the sons of Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel. Things deteriorate further until we get to Genesis 6, where we discover that the sons of God take to wife as many as they choose of the daughters of men. The sons of God are the righteous line, that line of descent which is trying to keep the covenant. The daughters of men are the rest of human beings who have given up on that covenant relationship with God. So we have the good boys who are from the church family, so to speak, marrying outside the church, multiple women starting to practice polygamy, and that leads to this race of notorious scoundrels called the Nephilim, who spread violence upon the earth, and now the earth is covered with violence. We could even say a kind of sexualized violence is all over the earth. And in this sad situation, God decides it's time to wash the world clean and start all over with a kind of new Adam figure whom we call Noah.